Hello students. So now structure of plasma membrane. The structure of cell membrane was proposed by Singer and Nicholson 1972, widely accepted as fluid mosaic model. According to this, the quasi-fluid nature of lipid enables lateral movement of proteins within the overall bilayer. This ability to move within the membrane is measured as its fluidity. Okay, as its fluidity. Now, next is the cell membrane is mainly composed of lipids and proteins. The major lipids are phospholipids that are arranged in a bilayer. Also, the lipids are arranged within the membrane with the polar head towards the outer sides and the hydrophobic tails towards the inner part. This ensures that the non-polar tail of saturated hydrocarbons is protected from the aqueous environment. In addition to the phospholipids, membrane also contains cholesterol. This model is known as lipid bilayer model. Okay, lipid bilayer. Membrane protein can be classified as integral and peripheral. Peripheral proteins lie on the surface of the membrane while the integral protein are partially or totally buried in the membrane. Okay. Now, next is membrane transport. Membrane transport. Plasma membrane is selectively permeable. Materials are transported across the membrane either by passive transport or active transport. So, plasma membrane is selectively is selectively permeable. Materials are transported across the membrane either by passive transport either by passive transport or active transport. Okay, so by passive transport or active transport. Okay, so now first passive transport. Uh, it is a physical process. Okay, passive transport is the movement of molecules or ions along concentration gradient. It doesn't require any expenditure of energy by the cell. The process by which materials get into the cell by passive transport are diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis, dialysis, etc. So, passive transport or physical process. Passive transport is the movement of molecules or ions along concentration gradient. It does not require any expenditure of energy. By the cell. The processes by which materials get into the cell by passive transport are the processes by which materials get into the cell by passive transport are diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis, and dialysis. So now, first start with diffusion. What is it? Diffusion is the movement of molecules of any substance from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. It is caused because of the natural tendency of a substance to spread uniformly in the dispersion medium. Okay. So what is diffusion? Diffusion is the movement of molecules of any substance from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. It is caused because the natural tendency, it is caused because the natural tendency of a substance to spread uniformly in the dispersion medium, Okay, now next, facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion or passive transport by carrier proteins. Passive transport by carrier proteins is called facilitated transport or facilitated diffusion. Like simple diffusion, it doesn't require energy and takes place along the concentration gradient, but it differs from simple diffusion because the carrier proteins are permeases. They move across the membrane by using energy provided by concentration gradient. Okay, so now passive transport by carrier proteins is called facilitated transport or facilitated diffusion. Is called facilitated transport or facilitated diffusion. Some general features of this kind of transport is some features are like simple diffusion, it does not require energy and takes place along the concentration gradient and takes place takes place along the concentration gradient. But it differs from simple diffusion. But it differs from simple diffusion because in facilitated diffusion a carrier protein permease, known as permease is required for transport across the membrane. By using energy provided by concentration gradient. Okay. Next, facilitated diffusion is stereospecific. Facilitated diffusion is stereospecific. What? Stereospecific. That is, only one of the two isomers which are L form or D form of a substance can be transported. That is stereospecific, that is only one of the two isomers which are L form or D form of a substance can be transported. Okay. Now next, facilitated diffusion can be of two types: uniport and co-transport. And this co-transport is again divided into symport and antiport. So, facilitated diffusion can be of two types: uniport and co-transport. This co-transport is again divided into symport and antiport. Okay. In my next video, I will discuss about the uniport, co-transport, symport, antiport, and the another transports like osmosis, dialysis, etc. So now, bye students.